yourself on mute and your camera off. That way we can have the pitchers see, so they could see the timekeeper, and also we can make sure that we see the people who are pitching. All right, and again, welcome to Pitch Breakfast. This is our, I believe, our third or fourth virtual Pitch Breakfast here, but we are always excited to have our local founders and everybody here together to give a chance for these entrepreneurs to practice their investor pitch and get to connect with other people in the community. We'll have a chance to do more of that connection afterwards in the breakout rooms, where you'll get to network with some of these companies and with each other. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But first, we want to get to these companies practicing their pitch, trying to grow their business in some very unusual circumstances. And we want to give them as much support as possible. So again, keep yourself muted, keep your camera off. We will turn all of that back on when we are in the networking portion. If you have a question for one of the companies that are pitching, you can always add that to the chat room. And after the panelist has a chance to talk to the companies, we'll try to get to one or two questions from the audience. So if you've got a question that you have for one of the companies that are pitching, type it into the chat. If we don't get it to you, feel free to reach out to them in the breakout rooms. You'll have an opportunity to network and talk to the companies that are pitching in the breakout rooms after the pitches are completed. And if for whatever reason you get bumped off and you're not able to see this via Zoom, you could always watch the live stream, which is happening on both Facebook and YouTube. If you're on Facebook, follow facebook.com/pitchbreakfast. Look for our group there. Give us a like, give us a follow. You'll be able to watch the live stream there. And on YouTube, it's kind of a long string of random letters. So your best bet is to just search Pitch Breakfast on YouTube, and you'll be able to find it there. If this is your first time at a Pitch Breakfast, welcome. This is an event where entrepreneurs pitch and panelists enrich. By that, what we mean is we have given opportunity for early stage founders to practice that investor pitch, really talk about their entire business model. And they do that to a panel of experts who have experience as entrepreneurs and investors themselves, and giving them feedback as an actual investor would in an investment pitch. We're supported by a handful of amazing organizations that make Pitch Breakfast possible. We love to have them all together in the room with us. We're not able to do that now, but we do want to give them all a very quick shout out. So since the very beginning, we've had the support of Spengler and Agins, attorneys for the Charlotte startup community. In terms of anybody that you want to sit down and talk about your idea with, Justin Agins is the person to do that. Helps you get started, formation, as well as getting prepared for some early stage funding. Justin is also on the board here and one of our resident attorneys on the Pitch Breakfast team. Next up, we have NK Patent Law, another one of our resident attorneys. Ani Agrawal is a great person to ask any question that has to do with IP. So if you have a trademark, patent, intellectual property question, this is the team that can help you out with that. And for a lot of founders, you know, they talk to Justin first to get their company formed. Then they're talking to Annie about their idea and how they can make sure that they have it protected or have the right patent or trademark. Moving on kind of in the order that founders typically grow companies, you know, one of the big things that they need is technology, having the right technology partner. And there really isn't a better technology partner than Dual Boot Partners. You know, it's right in the name. They build great software, and they've done so for a growing list of Charlotte area startups they have acted not just as a strategic partner, but sometimes almost as a technical co-founder to their companies. And they have lots of success stories to boot. Great people to also sit down and talk with about your idea or anything else that you need. They're known as great connectors. We also want to thank Powderly Vuchnik, our accountants and accountants for a lot of the startups here in town. Powderly Vuchnik, they're about getting really busy. I think the new tax deadline is coming up. So if you reach out to them now, it might take a couple days for them to get back to you, but they are great people to talk to when it comes to bookkeeping and your taxes. We also have TriNet Solutions for all things HR. You know, as companies grow and they build their technology, protect their IP, get their bookkeeping in order, they start to hire on more people. And when you're hiring on more people, you got to deal with things like payroll and compliance and benefits and all of that. And TriNet has a cloud platform that can do this for both small and large businesses. So as soon as you get to more than 3 employees and you want to stop doing this yourself, TriNet can help. And last but not least, Foundry Commercial. As startups grow into more established businesses and they want to get that creative, refurbished cotton mill loft space, chances are Foundry Commercial is the one that has that listed. Not only that, Foundry Commercial is known to save their clients a whole bunch of money on real estate costs while finding them exactly what they need. So great people to work with if you're looking to grow your physical footprint. And we want to give a big thank you to all of these companies and also give our legal disclaimer. Our legal disclaimer is that this event is educational in nature. The companies that are pitching are practicing and not conducting a securities offering. None of the companies pitching intend for this to be a general solicitation. So when you hear them here on screen pitching for X amount of dollars, they're not actually soliciting that. They are simply practicing that investment pitch. So with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get started in the format. The pitch format for today is going to be a 5-minute pitch, 10 minutes of Q&A. If any of you guys have been coming out to Pitch Breakfast regularly, you know that once a quarter, we have our Idea Fund format where we partner with Idea Fund and do a 2-minute pitch with no slides. We decided to change that up a little bit. We're still with Idea Fund partners, but we're going to try a 5-minute with slides format and see how it goes. However, the expectation for Idea Fund partners is that these are a little bit more refined than sometimes we have in our standard format, a little bit more, a little closer to the investor pitch. And to tell you a little bit more here about Idea Fund partners, we have 2 of their best representatives on our panel today. First, we have Lister Delgado, who has been with us since the very beginning. Lister is the managing partner of Idea Fund Partners. Lister, welcome.
Thank you, Juan.
And Lister, could you tell us maybe a little bit more about Idea Fund Partners for anybody who maybe is not familiar with you guys?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to keep it short so that we can hear from the panelists. But Idea Fund Partners is a seed and early stage venture capital fund. We have been around for over a decade and have been making investments in the early stages since then. We are currently investing out of our 3rd fund. We were lucky enough to have our final close of a fund in December, so pre-COVID. So we don't have to be fundraising right now. Although we have learned that we always need to be fundraising. So like any entrepreneur, we invest nationally, but most of our investments are in North Carolina. So, it's good to be here and hear some pitches. And just to say, I mean, we do have a thematic approach to our investing. And if you want to get a little more detail on what we like to invest in and how, you're welcome to go to our website at ideafundpartners.com. But the focus is really on technology. That's basically what we do.
Awesome. Thanks, Lister. And, as you guys in the audience can hear, if you're an entrepreneur, these are good people to know if you're planning on looking for early stage capital. And also on our panel today, we have Chris Langford, who is our partner at Idea Fund Partners and also the VC in residence up at the hub at Davidson. Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Juan. Good to be here.
So Chris, could you tell us a little bit more about this, your role up at the hub and maybe about the hub for anybody who's not familiar with it?
Yeah, absolutely. The hub is really the epicenter for entrepreneurship in the Lake Norman region of Charlotte. I think we have a broader reach than just the Lake Norman area, but it has served as the epicenter of entrepreneurship there. Brings together co-working, educational content and classes, mentorship programs, and social events, all dedicated to the entrepreneurial community. And it's situated right there on the Davidson campus. So, beautiful area to come and visit. My role as the VC in residence, I really kind of wear 3 hats. For the broader Hurt Hub community, I work on several committees with Davidson College and the Hurt Hub in general as they think about new programs, new educational opportunities, even capital formation opportunities for the college and the alumni of Davidson. secondarily, I host 2 hours of office hours every week. So people can sign up for a 30-minute slot. It doesn't have to be about pitching idea fund partners. We're not necessarily looking specifically for deal flow from that. That's 30 minutes of time with an entrepreneur who has a question, who has a comment, who wants to talk about any aspect of being an entrepreneur, raising capital, running their business, scaling their business, et cetera. So they can sign up every week. There's 2 hours, so 4 time slots every week that people can sign up for. And then the third and final part, which hasn't happened due to COVID, but hopefully will start again in the fall, is I'll be teaching a course on raising capital to the broader community there at the Hurt Hub. So if you've ever had questions or you want to dive deep into everything from how does a VC think, what are the different what are the different types of ways that people value a company, what are the different documents that I'm going to have to sign up for. If you've ever had questions and thoughts about raising capital and what that looks like and the type of investors, then come check it out.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. That's great. And I'll go ahead and just sort of reiterate 2 of those points. One, if you're in the Davidson or Lake Norman area, there's a lot of things going on at the Hub, including Pitch Breakfast. When we get back to live events, we do have a Pitch Breakfast event that happens at the Hub at Davidson that we would love to have you out at. And the second, Chris mentioned office hours, and I cannot recommend that enough, whether it's with Chris or many of the other mentors and thought leaders in the community. A lot of people give these office hours, and to be able to sit down with someone like Chris and have your questions answered and make that connection and get introductions and all that is incredibly valuable. And if you talk to any successful founder in town, you'll hear that those connections are worth their weight in gold. So, fill up Chris's calendar, get on his networking or his mentor hours or that of other thought leaders in the community. You won't regret it. So thank you, gentlemen, and we'll get started here in just a minute. But before we do, want to give one quick announcement, and that is that we are testing out the pre-app. So this is something that we tried a couple weeks ago, and there was a couple months ago, and there was a technical glitch with it. But if you go to pre.app, pre.app, and you enter event code 8771, what it does is it gives everybody a $10,000 in monopoly money, investor money, that you can invest however you like in the 3 companies that are participating in today's Pitch Breakfast. So if you want to put 3,000, 3,000, and 4,000, or all 10,000 in one, you can. There is no winner. There is no prize. This isn't real money. This is simply a test that we're doing for another startup that wants to create this app as a way to make events like this more exciting and as a way to sort of give feedback to different founders. And we've set it up for this event. We may use it again in the future, but right now it's just a test. So if you go to pre.app, enter the event code, you will see today's 3 participants presenting companies. And at the end, you'll be able to make your investment, your allocation here as a way of giving feedback to the companies and their pitches. Again, just a test, no sweat if you don't do it. If you participated in the last test, which was a couple months ago, you may already have the mobile app. You can also enter the event code in the mobile app as well.
You got to give people more than $10,000, Juan. Maybe that's why it's not working.
Maybe. Yes, we'll have to up that to 100,000 next time. So with that, we're going to get ready here for the pitches. And today we've got 3 companies. And as usual, we always end up with such a wide variety of companies. It's one of the fascinating things about Pitch Breakfast that we've had the pleasure of seeing over the past couple of years. And for these 3, we have Frame Fertility, that is in the fertility area, Bold Music, that's in the consumer music lessons, and Envoira, that participated in a QC FinTech event not that long ago, so or several months back. So we are going to go ahead and get started with these pitches. But before we do, one last reminder, please turn off your cameras until we get to the networking portion. The reason for that is because as these companies pitch, they want to be able to see Christy, who's going to be showing the timer. And we haven't figured out another easier way of doing that other than asking you to keep your cameras off, yourselves muted, When we get to the networking portion, you'll have the opportunity to turn everything on and make those connections. So cameras off, muted, and we should be ready to go. So Jessica, if you are ready, you can go ahead and start. See if you can share your slides. Does it take over mine or do I have to cut mine off?
Let's
try that.
see. Trying to figure out. I think you have to stop sharing yours
All right.
potentially.
All right, so while Jessica is getting that up, just again, the pre-app, pre.app, and the event code is 8771. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Jessica, you can get started whenever you're ready, and Kristen will be keeping time.
Wonderful. And Juan, just to confirm, everybody can see my screen?
Everybody can see your screen. Yep.
Fantastic. Well, wonderful. So thank you so much for having me on the call today. My name is Jessica Bell Vanderwall, and I'm the founder and CEO of Frame Fertility, a personalized digital health platform that helps users take control of their fertility preconception and avoid unnecessary treatments such as in vitro fertilization. Make sure I can go to the next slide easily. Perfect. There we go. So I'll say this is a new pitch approach. Whoop. Now it's gone a little bit crazy. So I'll say this is a new pitch approach for us, but it felt important to change it given a recent life change for myself and my co-founder and my husband, Corey. We actually welcomed our first daughter, our first child and daughter, Parker, who you'll see on the screen here. And I'll spare you the details of how wonderful and overwhelming the last 2 weeks have been, and instead focus on how she really inspired actually what we've built here. And one other comment, whoops, sorry, keeps going in and out of, I think we're okay. For some reason it keeps going in and out of the slide format. And before we jump in, I'll also comment that obviously our team is not just myself, my husband, and our child managing us. We are actually supported by a robust team of clinicians who have been instrumental in building, validating, and delivering our product. And I hope as we go through, you'll see that being data and research driven is really paramount to our success and impact. So we built Frame Fertility in response to a need we experienced personally. We wanted to have children in our mid-30s, and we did what we do in the rest of our lives. We tried to understand and address the risks proactively to minimize their impact. We're planners. And I'd say it sadly at each conversation with many different OBGYNs and fertility specialists, we were turned away with some version of, well, just wait and see if you get pregnant, or if you're that worried about it, you can pay tens of thousands of dollars to freeze your embryos, which have an unclear track record of success. So discouraged, and it turns out misinformed, we waited to try to conceive. And while there's a happy ending for us with Parker, it wasn't without a lot of unnecessary high-cost procedures, many doctor's appointments, lab work, tests, and most significantly, a lot of physical, mental, and emotional strain. And again, we were lucky, not everyone is. So as digital health veterans, we felt compelled to determine if there was a better way. And it turns out there certainly is. After researching this topic and talking with countless experts, we learned that it doesn't have to be the path for us or for any other couples that go through this. There's actually a lot of well-established literature and numerous in-depth studies showing that there's a lot you can do in advance to increase the odds of meeting your fertility goals. But sadly, this has not woven its way into the healthcare system because, namely, OBGYNs are not trained in fertility. Many don't have time for these discussions during their well woman exams, and it's not even clear how they would bill for the time. So the bigger picture, though, is this is not just about us. 1 in 7 women in the US are diagnosed with infertility, but much of infertility is not even addressed or known today. Less than 1% of women in the US have even gone down the path of using something like in vitro fertilization. And a lot of the innovation has really been focused on more high-cost treatment because it's lucrative. And if we take a step back, the problem is only continuing to worsen as individuals wait longer to start families, and the risk of infertility grows, leading to a huge market and significant healthcare costs. Now, I'll say, if any of you are familiar with this so-called femtech space or fertility, you may notice that we're not the only ones that have figured out that fertility is a big market. However, there we go. However, these solutions don't solve for the need that we had, which is to plan ahead. And actually, most of them make the problems worse by encouraging high-cost reactive treatments or building solutions that are not scalable. So our approach leverages the model that's been proven successful in many other industries. And in particular, I think a great metaphor is actually financial planning. I'll also say that in other areas of healthcare, this model is being utilized, such as diabetes, where there's been a recognition that actually helping individuals that are pre-diabetic is a bigger need than even those that have diabetes today. So we're doing that same thing for fertility. And our bet is that proactive planning avoids high-cost care and improves outcomes simultaneously. So basically, we replace the whole wait and see with the proactive, here is what you can do. And again, we hope that that reduces costs and unnecessary treatment and improves outcomes and helps users feel more satisfied with their path to fertility. So to take a step back, our solution is a proactive fertility planning platform that focuses on individuals ages 25 to 40. We basically intake the user's information, help them understand where they are today so that we can enable them to take control and act upon that information. And in doing that, we actually generate a rich and impactful longitudinal data set starting well before conception that is sorely missing in fertility research today. Now, the great news is we've actually already released a direct-to-consumer MVP. Our initial audience, I'll say, was focused on professional women. We went to business schools initially. And our initial launch, we've actually even seen interest outside of that first audience, in particular from male partners, which has been really fantastic. And in our MVP, we focused on those first two steps of the platform, so the intake and the assessment. And we started doing initial intake with our users and providing them with a detailed, personalized assessment based on a unique clinical algorithm that we built, applying existing research to each individual situation. And this automated solution we actually pair with a QA process that we've developed in partnership with fertility-focused clinicians. Now, the feedback on our launch has actually been overwhelmingly positive. So we filled our wait list within 2 weeks with almost no marketing. We literally had a blurb in a newsletter that went out. And the users actually paid for the product, so there is a willingness to pay. And the feedback is not only that they're satisfied, but that they feel empowered to take actions that are known to improve outcomes and reduce costs.
And Jessica, we're at time.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Sorry.
I couldn't see the person with the cue card, so that's my fault. All right. Well, I will pause on business model and actually the next step. So I'm happy to pause here.
No problem. Thanks, Jessica. Chris Lister?
Well, maybe I can help you out by asking you about your business model.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. So we started with individual consumers, as I mentioned, and that was really to test the market and ensure that the end user sees value and we establish product market fit. However, we know that actually a large portion of self-insured employers are bearing the burden of unnecessary fertility costs. Today, actually 30 to 40% of the Russell 3000 are actually sponsoring fertility benefits and paying for some portion of this. And so we know that actually leveraging my experience in this space, we can actually help them reduce their costs by providing this service to their employees. I'll also say, we have actually started engaging fertility clinics and health systems that feel unequipped to handle these discussions and have seen significant traction there, including some in Charlotte. So again, to your comment, we're starting with direct to consumer, but we see a B2B2C model through employers and healthcare providers as well.
So I thought you did a great job presenting the problem, the issue, your differentiation. That was well done.
Thank you.
So one of the things I think about is the similarities between preventive medicine and specialized medicine, and why my pediatrician wife makes so little money, and her surgeon friends make 20 times more. And I think that's what you're trying to do: be the primary care provider for fertility, or advisor for fertility. So if you can elaborate on that and the benefits of that, or the challenges with that. But also, I'm not sure that I understood well enough what keeps the couple or the the person who wants to be get pregnant coming back? I mean, once they receive information from you on an initial assessment, I'm not sure that I understood the purpose of the plan on an ongoing basis where you keep a customer for an extended period of time.
Yep, great question. So first and foremost, to your comment about preventative medicine or preventative care, it's interesting. Again, there are a lot of players in this space, but like you commented, the lucrative arena that's a quick fix and you get money right up front is actually to support women in getting treatment. So that's why a lot of the players are there. No question. There really isn't a player in the preventative space, and that's really where we're trying to play. Now, that said, like I mentioned, the OBGYNs and the fertility clinics recognize that it's something important to have in the dialogue with patients, and they want to invest in it. They just don't know how to fit it into their models. And so they're really eager to have a digital tool and a telehealth approach that actually can be bolted on and is very convenient for users. So again, they see the value in it. I'd say our users also do. But again, I think the reason why there's not any players there is because it doesn't get you the quick money. It's the longer play for sure. Now, in terms of the kind of next steps after intake and assessment, I think the other big thing, though, is with the current solutions, right? It's the quick and dirty, I need treatment, and then you move forward, right? You have treatment, you get pregnant, hopefully, and you move forward. We're actually supporting users that are in their late 20s, right? Or even early 30s. And so we've got multiple years actually to engage with them and to support them in their journey. A lot of these women that we've been talking with are 3 to 5 years out from wanting to conceive. And so what we are doing right now, again, is giving them that initial assessment, but then we actually follow up with them and generate a thoughtful checklist and help them with purchasing products that are certified by clinicians. There's a lot of kind of follow-on work that we can do to generate ongoing revenue over a longer period of time, not just a point in time with the one procedure and then you move forward. And I'd say, a lot of that is what we're still testing and figuring out with our MVP, but there's for sure a lot of need once you get that initial assessment to support the user as they continue forward with meetings with their doctor or having conversations with their partner, et cetera. And so that's what the ACT and follow-up pieces that you're seeing here are actually tailored to support.
So just following up on that, and I'll let Chris go next, but how early, what is the typical time when someone starts to worry about this? And because I would think that this is not really something that people think about it. Nobody thinks, well, I don't know. I shouldn't say nobody. Most people probably, my guess is, think about the fact that they're going to have kids maybe, but they don't think about being potentially infertile. And until it's a problem, which it's what creates the issue. So are you going to change people's minds, or the minds of people is different than what I think it is?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's probably one of the number one questions we get from investors in general. And I'd say two things on that. One is, if you would have asked me actually 5 years ago when we went through this, I would have given you a different answer. But actually now there's a lot of new players, in particular, if anybody's familiar with modern fertility, that is echoing this message of planning ahead and taking control with hormone tests. There's a lot more messaging around this than there's ever been. There's been a huge explosion again in the femtech space that has really generated a lot of rich dialogue. And so women are actually shifting towards that mindset. And again, that's been a pretty recent thing, past 2 to 3 years. But the other thing I'll comment on is, we were somewhat skeptical as well. We thought, well, maybe this is individuals that are in their mid 30s, I don't know, maybe even their late 30s. But like I mentioned, actually more than 50% of our users that signed up for our service and our MVP were in their late 20s. And it's users that are, again, highly thoughtful, professional women that are planning out their next steps with their career. They're thinking about their finances, and they want to have fertility planning kind of right alongside that. And so we've actually seen even earlier in the life cycle of women interest in this. And actually, like I mentioned, what I was really surprised by was the male interest. So men are actually starting to think about, in their late 20s, early 30s, is there something that I need to be doing to make sure that, I'm set up for success from a fertility standpoint? So I think the shift is happening. And I think I've been even surprised by how quickly and easily women and men have grasped onto this idea that they want to understand where they are today and make sure they don't kind of get stuck in this situation because they know they want to have children later. So again, I think that I'm seeing more and more of that, and I think that that is going to continue with the next generation as well.
So one last comment on this topic, on this point is that you probably know this already, but just in case you don't, what an investor wants to see, the question that I'm asking is, what is your customer acquisition cost, which you probably don't know yet, and what is the lifetime value of that customer? I'm just trying to think in my head the math. I know this is a very personal subject, but any investor is going to make it into a numbers problem. So if you can incorporate into your pitch what you expect to make out of a customer, and what is going to cost you to acquire that customer, that is what's going to help me get excited about the potential investment. Because I think the problem is easy to understand.
That's great. Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I think we're in the process of obviously generating a lot of those numbers through our MVP launch, but it's a little different in a pilot launch like this. I will say that our initial product is actually margin positive from the start. And we've also built it in a way that has positive ROI for customers immediately. So, that is something we're really mindful of. We've also balanced the reality that the pricing has higher margins on renewing subscription than up front. We want to minimize the barriers for signing up. But again, right from the very beginning, we're still margin positive. But I totally hear your point on kind of the bigger picture.
I would not be afraid to make a guess. I mean, I know that you're just launching the product and you don't have many customers yet, or you just started, but I think it's okay to guess, to say, look, this is my assumption.
Yeah. Yeah, and we definitely can do that. I've lived in this world for a long time, so absolutely. Well, thank you for your questions.
Hey, Jessica. One, I think I'll just kind of go with more pitch feedback because I'd love to connect actually offline to ask deeper questions. I've got more questions than we have time to go off of. So, the way I always look at pitches is, you have X period of time to get to the next conversation, right? And we've got, we'll look through, 2,000 a year or whatever the number that comes to, right? And so we have a funnel and it whittles down based off of catching our attention to move to the next phase. So I kind of have this template that I have written down, and I've got 8 things on the side that I'm looking to answer in that time, right? So, and usually this is the order that I'd see it in, which is, give me a sense of the problem. Tell me about your solution, how it addresses it. Give me a sense of what the market size looks like if we successfully address the problem. Give me a good competitive landscape so that I can understand what's so different about what you're doing versus other people. Tell me how you're going to go to market and make money. Give me a sense of what traction you have to date. Tell me why your team is the team to win the market at the end of the day, and then what's the ask, right? What are you looking for to get to the next level? I mean, I know that I can feel within the presentation already that that's in there at a really good level. I thought it took a little too long to get to the solution, right? So we set up the problem a lot. There was kind of the team, and there was some competition to some degree, but it took a while for us to get to like, what is this product? What does it do? How do we help people with it? And I thought that was, one thing I like to kind of level set on up front so that I can contextualize a lot of the rest of the conversation. Similar with the competition, give me a sense of how it was different. Like there was a lot of logos, and it was obvious that there's a lot of people working on this. It doesn't have to be as trite as the 2x2 matrix that everyone puts themselves in the top right quadrant on, but some level of being able to figure out the differentiation on that end. And I think the other part is there's in the short amount of time we spent on the team slide, there's a lot of really solid, things that we're looking for. Hey, So they can be a little wordy at time, and I found myself trying to like go through the slides and read the words as opposed to focus on the presentation. But overall, I think I agree. I think it's a huge opportunity, and the more I've kind of looked around in this space, the more I realize people are becoming more proactive and really addressing this before it becomes an issue, right? Because at that point, it's expensive, it's emotionally taxing, all these other kind of things. So, yeah, I think it's a great concept. I would love to connect offline and learn a lot more.
Juan, how much time do we have to follow up on that?
With that, we're actually out of time.
Okay.
I was going to just,
That's what I figured.
Jessica, there was a question that came in from our friends at Well Zesta. If you want to answer that in the chat, you can answer that here while we get set up here for the next one. So our next company is Bold Music. George, whenever you want to take over sharing your slides, we'll get that up and running. And
we made a co-host.
Oh, did you lose that? All right. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. And while George is getting that up and running, a reminder that we do have the networking portion immediately after that. So this should run, the pitches should run until 10 o'clock. After 10 o'clock, you're going to have an opportunity to connect with each of these founders. They're going to each be in a different breakout room, and you'll have a chance to network, ask questions, learn a little bit more from them. Quick reminder to turn off your cameras if you're not presenting so that they are able to see the timer and keep track there on time from Christy. And with that, George, you up and ready?
I am.
All right, take it away.
George, can you see me?
Can you see Christy?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is George Ramsey. I am the co-founder and CEO of Bold Music Lessons. We're based here in Charlotte, but we recently expanded to Raleigh. And also, we during the pandemic, we introduced video lessons, and we now offer video lessons all over the world, really. Just want to take a quick moment, ask you guys to all support local musicians. They're getting slammed by this shutdown and this pandemic. So shoot me an email if you have any questions and want some direction on how you can support local artists or just artists in general. So our company started off as an in-home music lesson provider back in 2013. And we, like I said, have pivoted a little bit successfully, I would say, to also offering virtual music lessons. We, from the start, have been profitable. We've never taken on investment or anything like that. And about 7 years in, we've got a proven and resilient business model with definitely with a lot of room to grow. We were on track to smash our growth this year, but we've always averaged between 35 and 50% growth year over year. So really proud of what we've been able to accomplish, and are kind of looking for moving into the next step and really growing more regionally, nationally, and potentially internationally. What we do is we make learning music accessible and convenient. So we offer in-home music lessons, virtual music lessons, and a hybrid of the two in select markets. So that's what we do for our families and students. And we also provide steady, high-paying work for talented musicians. So we kind of are providing a service to both musicians and students. Competition, I say not really. Of course, there's plenty of competition. The music world is very fragmented, the music education world. We're competing with studios, your neighborhood grandma, or just, hobby teacher, big retail stores that might have music lessons, and online platforms that might do live instruction, but also might do things like YouTube and pre-recorded instruction. We like to think we're different than those places because we're very high touch, very personalized in our matchmaking and our approach in general. We think we're building an engaged community, and relationships are just as important as learning an instrument. Okay, the business model, essentially how we make money. We're brokers for music teachers. We take a cut from every lesson. So we're like a staffing company. We hire musicians, find them students, take a cut. It's a subscription model. Because we don't have a physical studio location, we have low overhead and are able to pay our instructors a lot. And again, just we're a little bit more profitable, I would think, than most music lesson companies. And like I mentioned before, we're really a service on two fronts. Our customers are both students and teachers. Our goal is to make them, make our customers or make our teachers earn a good, solid living so they can focus on the art that they love. how do we get customers? Predominantly 3 ways: paid search, SEO, referrals. From the start, my co-founder has a background in paid search. So we've always been really into that. We invest a lot in paid search as well as SEO, organic stuff like that. And we're big into referrals in our industry. That's the easiest way to get new customers, like in most industries. So what we need is we need the right partner to help us transition from local, which we've done really successfully, and we're starting to do a little bit in Raleigh, to more national, regional, predominantly with our virtual platform. So we have the capability right now to enroll about 10 students per day, which could effectively double our size in a month if we were able to do it. The struggle is getting in front of the right audience, showing how great our service is, like visually and audibly, and getting people interested in it. So we know we have a solid business. It's been solid from the start. We've done pretty decently well. And we also know throughout the years, the best thing that we can do is continue to bring talent, bring the right people into the mix. And that's something that we've kind of pride ourselves in being able to do. We're not well versed in kind of branching out into a much larger kind of landscape. So that's kind of it, I think. I can go ahead and open up for questions. I know it's a little kind of, I just flew through that. I'm a little excited.
Oh, that works, George. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Let me lead
Sure.
this one off.
Sure.
Sure. Hey, George. Thanks for pitching. So give me a sense, like what's the problem that you're solving? Are people finding it hard to get access to music lessons? Are you solving a problem for musicians? Like I'm not exactly sure I understand exactly the problem that people are feeling.
Yep. So we're solving a problem for musicians in that musicians always struggle to make a living, and they always end up, going to work at Starbucks or going to work in some non-artistic field because they really need steady, dependable work. So we provide. So the problem we solve for them is we provide that work, and it's in an industry that they're passionate about. They may not be like trained educators, but they're musicians and they're good at teaching. And the problem that families and students have is just knowing it's such a fragmented world that like they know they can come find us, and we've got a stacked team of really solid musicians who all of them will teach them effectively. So it kind of like filters through the mess for families and allows you to have like a one-stop spot to know to find good quality instruction.
And how do you vet them to make sure that they're good at teaching and not just good at playing?
That's a really good question. We have a pretty thorough vetting process that includes me. I'm a musician. I have a music degree from Davidson College. I have all of them play. I look at examples of them playing music, but we also do we do phone screenings. We do multiple in-person interviews, reference and background checks. And a lot of the references we look for typically are previous students and families that these folks have worked with. It's not an exact science by any means. I mean, you could have a graduate degree in music and not be that great of a teacher, and you can have no degree, having been on tour right out of high school and be one of the best teachers around. So it's not an exact science, but that's one of the things that we do. That's one of the problems we solve as well, is vetting the right instructors for families.
And is that so from a competitive perspective? There's Thumbtack as a general local services marketplace. I'm sure Craigslist, and I'm sure there's some offshoots that maybe directly look at music. Like,
yeah,
what's the differentiation between? So I get here's the physical people, grandma and studios and whatnot, right? But there are some tech-enabled kind of marketplaces to find someone. What's the difference between Bold Music and a traditional tech-enabled marketplace in this space?
So we're highly personalized. So the matchmaking process between when a potential student or client reaches out and when they actually get set up with a student, there's a pretty solid back and forth to make sure that we're setting them up for success. And on top of that, we're curating a pretty sweet both physical and virtual community that students and families and teachers can be a part of. So there are some competitors, like you mentioned, Thumbtack. There's another big one called Lesson Face that is essentially an online dashboard where you can find a teacher and take lessons, but that's about it. It facilitates the transaction and it facilitates the lesson. we're trying to build relationships and community.
Okay. Sorry, can I ask 2 more questions, Lister? I don't want to take all the good ones from you.
All the ones you want.
So a musician, what is an average musician taking home net off of this? So if you're going out and pitching someone and say like, hey, don't work at Starbucks, come do this. Like what could an average musician take home off this platform?
Well, they're all independent contractors, so they set their like how much they work. They can decide that, and that obviously depends on how much they make. We pay an hourly rate of $40 an hour for in-home lessons and $35 for virtual. And we've got some teachers that are very much part-time, because basically music teachers are all, or musicians in general are all kind of in the gig economy, and they're working multiple jobs. But like I would say on the low end, they may make, they may only have a handful of students and they're bringing home $1,000 a month versus the higher end might be closer to $2,500, $3,000 a month. No one is like technically full time, but maybe like the busiest teachers we have between 25 and 30 students. But even those ones who are as close to full time as it gets do other things, whether that's production work, playing in their church band, being a worship leader, things like that. So it's not for, none of our teachers is it their full time income, but it could be.
And then the last question, this ask, can you be more specific as to what this ask is? Like when you ask for a partner, like what do you want that partner to do for you?
Well, to me, we've never taken on investment. So there's kind of intentional why I put this on here. We've never taken on investment, and we're not sure how that would all look. But what we have, our investment typically is new staff. So we just hired our second full-time employee. And I think what we look for more than simply an injection of capital is someone that's going to come in and have some serious expertise that can take us from this local market that we've kind of figured out to a much more, regional, national approach. And a lot of like, even, things that like we have a lot of expertise in local paid search and organic and all that, but it's just a whole different ball game, even with like things like PR going more broadly. So I would say that we're looking for more so like human capital than actual like monetary capital. But at the same time, if someone came in and if that was contingent upon equity or investment in the company, then of course that would be on the table as well.
Okay.
So,
all right, Mr.
Yeah. 3 things I would point out, and this is kind of like question/feedback. I think it's important for you to think about your goals. Of course, everybody wants to build a huge business and be super successful, but I think you also want to be realistic about what you want to give up in your life in order to achieve your goals. So, gotta put a realistic goal in perspective. So that's important. I wasn't quite clear as to whether you want to build a public company one day or you want to have a great time and make some money. And so that it was a little unclear to me. And now you don't need to present that, but I think that's important to think about when you're thinking about getting a partner and maybe raising money. But in order to raise money, I do think that it's important to think also about 2 things that I didn't hear from your deck. Mm-hmm. One is you need to have a scalable process and versus a linear process. And you need to have a pretty clear understanding of what your go-to-market strategy is going to be. And by that, I mean, you're interviewing every single musician, for example. If you're going to have a huge business, that's not going to work. That's not going to scale. Now, maybe you can have someone else, but that creates problems. So the process that you have currently is very linear. And that means, you can have a great business. Now, it's not a great idea to get money when your process is linear, because, that kind of a business is better off to just simply grow organically. You give up too much and the investors don't want to participate in the investment because they need explosive growth, and you need something scalable, something that will exponentially grow without you doing so much hand holding and touching. That's why I think many businesses can be franchises on the music side. Franchising allows you to have a more scalable approach, so you don't worry about the day-to-day. And then the other thing is the go-to-market. I think your differentiation is not going to be on the product or the service, but rather how you go to market. And
That's right.
I think but you gotta be more clear about how you explain that, because it wasn't, it wasn't clear enough that you were differentiated on your go-to-market approach.
Yep.
So that's what I would provide as feedback. Think about those two things.
Totally.
And if you do have a scalable process in a very differentiated go-to-market, I mean, you can then start to think about raising money.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's super helpful. We've looked at the franchising option, maybe for down the line a little bit, and it's always been, even just saying, what is the differentiator? This is one of the challenges. Like, it's hard to accurately explain it to somebody who has no idea who we are, and we need to fix that.
Yeah, it's not going to be on the product because there's too many.
Right.
Too much.
The product is not anything life-changing. It's the experience.
You remind me of School of Rock. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, and we think we're actually quite different from them, but it is hard to articulate in a way.
No, I know it is different because I don't think they're focused on the musicians the way you are.
Right.
But yeah. Anyway.
Chris, Lester, thank you. If you guys don't have any other questions, I've got one from the audience here for George. Have you considered branching out to other arts like voice, drama, or visual arts, or having a platinum level with maybe famous musicians as the teachers, kind of like what's that master class that's out there? Yeah,
we totally have, and we're actually looking into something along those, not exactly like masterclass, but kind of partnering with some big names. And we, as far as like other services, we have also considered that. We do voice. I mean, we put voice in the realm of music, but things like tutoring, dance, even like, because our business is an in-home, so like we do house calls, there's a lot of other types of businesses that we could theoretically get into with a similar kind of back end. But we have not actively pursued that. We've really been pretty focused on musicians. And then we've sort of doubled down on that during the pandemic because we feel like it's really, really important to help musicians continue to make a living. A lot of musicians are, their contract work, it's all part-time. And so when they lose their job, some of them can't even get unemployment because of just the way their income is set up. So yeah, we've kind of paused on some of the greater things and really narrowed our vision to really like, okay, how can we keep our musicians working?
Yep.
I think,
great.
George, I think is better. You do, before you go wide, you do need to think about your differentiation. It's not always better to go broad. You think about your differentiation first, then you can think about whether it makes sense to add.
Totally. I completely agree. And that's the big question for us is how do we're struggling with that. Like, get it beyond the Charlotte market and kind of like our brand awareness here. It's like, how do we explain the differentiation? So that's the challenge.
All right, George, thank you so much. If you could unshare your screen, we'll get Manny here with Envoira up. And while Manny, let me know if you don't have the co-host capability. Oh, it looks like he does. And while he does, I'll add it to the chat, but there's an event coming up next week, July 16th. If you're in the healthcare space, the Queen City Health Tech Summit is next Thursday around 1:00, bringing together different entrepreneurs in the health tech ecosystem. So I'll add that link here to the chat. If you're interested, highly recommend that you check out that event to see what is going on in the healthcare space. All right, Manny. Looks like you've got it up and running. Let me know if you're ready to start it. Manny, is it ready to start the slideshow? Manny, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, 1 second. Just need to figure out.
It's a little quiet on my end.
Yeah. We can't hear you very well, Manny. While he's getting his slides up, I'll go ahead and add another event to the chat, and that is Charlotte Inno. If you're familiar with Charlotte Inno, which I'm the general manager here of Charlotte Inno, we're a publication that covers tech events, information, resources, stories, and we're having what we're calling our new Bites with the Beat conversation, which is just a little one-on-one between our staff writer Elise and a local entrepreneur, leader, innovator, which will be on July 22nd at 3 o'clock on Wednesday. We will be featuring Michelle Bulow, who is the founder of baby accessory company Bellatuno, and to talk a little bit about her new B Corp certification. So if anybody here knows Todd, which I'm sure most of you, if you've been to a pitch breakfast, you know Todd. His wife, Michelle, is a great entrepreneur and who has just received the certification, and that conversation will be happening on this event. So I'll add the link to that event as well. And it looks like, Manny, we should be ready to go.
You guys hear me okay?
It's a little quiet.
You're okay. I'll bring up my volume.
All right. I guess I'll just get closer to the microphone.
All right, sounds good. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. My name is Manny Salem. I am the lead developer and founder here at Invoira, and we help small businesses streamline vendor payments. And way before I started doing all this, I worked in the accounting industry. I was a bookkeeper, and this happened more than 12 years ago. And one of the things that I remember most challenging was dealing with vendor payments and accounts payable. The process was paper-based. Remember dealing with a lot of invoices and checks. Dealing with vendors was a nightmare. I used to get calls from vendors asking for payment status. At the time, we didn't have a tool that gave us visibility into payments, and that was a nightmare. I did that until I just couldn't do it anymore and decided to switch careers. Eventually got involved in technology and became a software developer. And I focused my career building e-commerce and payments platforms. So I've been doing that for about 10 years. And the problem is that about 1/3 of small businesses today still struggle to make vendor payments. And the technologies that exist today, they tend to focus on helping larger companies. And so I decided to build a solution. And our solution is Invoira. And we help small businesses streamline their entire vendor payment process. And what we do is that we collect vendor invoices, purchase receipts. We extract data from each document. We leverage AI and machine learning to do that. From there, small businesses can set up invoice approvals, and they can send automated payments to their vendors. And then our platform reconciles every single transaction with their accounting system in real time. Our goal as a company is to build the most efficient and the most cost-effective AP automation solution, and we want to make it accessible to as many small businesses as possible. So here's what the competition looks like. As I mentioned earlier, most companies right now are focusing on helping larger companies, and they're very expensive. And when you look at the tools in the small business space, they have many limitations. And so what we noticed was a big need in the market. There are small businesses that need that extra functionality, but they're not willing to pay that cost that comes with that. So that's the gap that we are addressing. One of the biggest advantages that we have is our simplicity and ease of use is the compliment that we get from our customers the most. But at the same time, we're very powerful. We give you enough functionality to streamline the entire vendor payment process from end to end. During this journey, we identified 3 different clients: solo entrepreneurs, small accounting teams, and mid-sized, large accounting teams. We charge a monthly subscription fee for each, and we also collect a small transaction fee each time our users pay their vendors. We are in a pretty sizable market, but right now we're focused on our beachhead market, and these are independent accounting and bookkeeping firms. There are over 300,000 of them here in the United States, and we're projected to capture a little over 2% of that market within 5 years. Here's what our projections look like. First year, we want to onboard 200 accounting firms. By year 5, we're going to be onboarding 3,800 accounting firms. and generating $9.2 million in yearly recurring revenue. We've been in business for about 2 years. So far, we completed our product. Back in November, we launched a pre-launch campaign, collected about 150 emails from interested businesses. And last week, we launched our private beta. And right now, we have 17 accounting firms using our product. Our goal is to really collect as much feedback as possible to continue making improvements to our platform. These are some of the key metrics we collected during our marketing experiments. Our lead to sign up ratio is 10%, cost per acquisition 150, and we were able to achieve that with social media channels. We projected average revenue per user $200 per month, and a lifetime value of $6,665. So right now we're focused on product development and developing our digital marketing strategy. Is what has been working so far, so we want to continue doing that. In the summer, we're going to be launching another campaign, and our goal is to optimize our sales funnel. And we're going to continue optimizing our campaigns as we continue to grow. Right now, we're raising $110,000 to help us with product development, sales, and marketing, and to cover some of the operational costs. And our main goal is to connect with investors who have access and connections in the SaaS, mid-size, enterprise space. We would like to learn more about that space. We have the small business space, I would say, covered, but we need some of those connections. And that's my time.
Great. Thanks, Manny. 5 minutes go by very quickly. I know.
Yeah.
I'll start this one. I'll let Chris provide additional comments. Two thoughts that came to mind, Manny, when you were presenting. Well, more than two actually, maybe 3 or 4, but two questions, I guess. But one, I think you did a great job of presenting the problem. I'm not sure. I think you probably could have done a better job of presenting the differentiation or the nature of the issues at play. But the two pieces of feedback I would give you is that it's very difficult to compete on price. That may be one of the competing advantages that you have, but it's very tough to convince an investor to give you money because you're competing on price. To be, that in itself as the point, the reason why you're different, because price is something, and I think it's price, not cost, really, that you're talking about. It's not your intrinsic cost, but your price. Price is something that someone can strategically choose to change and to bring to zero. Some companies charge nothing, and I've invested in companies that lost because big investors or big companies competed with them eventually by bringing the prices to zero. So just think about the issue with that. I think that there's usually more than that. I think you are doing more than that probably. I think you're focusing on the SMB, and you're probably providing other benefits that are useful for them. So price, I'm not saying that that's not a competitive point, but I think that's a difficult thesis to put as an investment thesis. The other one is, I did not hear much about your go-to-market strategy. I saw some charts that talk about your growth and your expectations of growth, but that's not a strategy. That's a set of goals. And so in particular, so I think you need to be a little more specific, and maybe you went too quickly through this. But if you think about this slide, for example, it's titled go-to-market, but a lot of this is about product and building the product rather than go-to-market. And the reason why that is really important in your case is because when the most difficult thing for a business when they're addressing a SMB market is to get to them. It's very tempting and easy to say, all I have to do is convince a guy to give me $20 a month. It's very easy. That's okay to do that once, but to do that millions of times, that is a really difficult problem. So the whole issue of scalability becomes a completely different problem. And an investor needs to understand that. It's okay to continue to build a product But you should definitely start to think about your go-to-market strategy, because in order for you to be successful and to achieve the goals that you have, you're going to have a way to get to the small businesses out there, which it's really difficult. That's the challenge with that approach. You're not going to be able to pay high salaries to a lot of very good salespeople, because that doesn't work with the SMB market. So I'll leave it at that and let Chris add on.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the presentation contained, the bulk of the items that we'd want to talk about, right? So I think structurally it was set up very well. I do agree. I really like the idea of how you went, hey, here's the broad competitive set of kind of vendor invoicing solutions, and then let me sort of let me narrow that down and focus on those who are truly in the SMB. So here's the big market, and then here are the people who I'm really kind of competing with. That said, I agree. I think that the next slide, it has some it has a lot of data on it, but it'd be great to more visualize. I think a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll put themselves and then the next competitors, and they'll have a bunch of different like elements of it. So it might be like document extraction, low cost, complexity, whatever it is that you want to highlight. You'd have check marks and the other people wouldn't, right? It helped me visualize some of the elements of the differentiation between those. That said, I do agree that for me, when I look at this, the question that I have, so thinking of Intuit as a good example, which is like, how is it that Intuit, like, what would it take for Intuit to just come into your space, right? Are they just missing OCR and the ability to extract from a doc? Because you could probably pull that off GitHub today, and I know that's probably simplifying it, but those things are starting to become commoditized. So how do you get that? And I guess when I was looking at it, I kept thinking, how do you build a moat so that Intuit or Avid or whoever it is that's doing this doesn't come into your sandbox? I don't know if you say like, hey, there's really difficult switching costs, when a business starts leveraging something like this, they don't, it's very difficult for them to move to another system. And I also think that you want to be thinking about, growing faster if that's the case, right? So year 5 to have 3,800 small businesses on there is probably not enough to create kind of a moat, right, against some of these competitors. But I do think, like I say, I do think that there's a lot of the information that we'd ultimately want to look for. You had a 3% churn rate in there. Is that an assumption, and how did you kind of get to that? That's a pretty low churn.
Yeah, that was just an assumption, and we were also looking at similar companies in our space.
Okay, so it does indicate that there's a pretty high level of stickiness once you kind of get onto this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I'd say the last point I would agree with Lister, which is understanding go to market. Is it purely reliant on Facebook ads for click-throughs to then lead to signups? Is that really the kind of way? Or are there other more innovative ways to maybe even aggregate, right, as a distribution, maybe to specific types of small business owners, to kind of go that route? But I think overall, I think most of the info is in there. I just think maybe it needs to be repackaged a little bit.
One more point on the SMB market, and to the point that Chris was making. I think you basically are targeting every single small business out there. Is that correct?
I was waiting for you guys to finish so I can address.
Okay. Oh, go ahead. Please, go ahead.
Yeah. So right now we're focused on where we are now, right? So we have three different types of customers, and right now we're focused on the center, the small accounting teams. And these are independent accounting firms in the United States. So this group of professionals have very specific needs in the market. And you mentioned Intuit and others, but Intuit is already in the market. but they simply give you an option to make a payment on one specific QuickBooks account. But when we talk about accounting firms, they manage multiple accounts. So that's not possible to do on Intuit now. And it's not just managing different accounts. Accounting firms have their specific workflows that they use for their clients. And that's how we are differentiating, by building tools for that specific market. And also, you mentioned growing faster. When you look at our projections here, one accounting firm can bring 10 small business clients. So we don't need that many to even break even. But if we go directly to small business, then we're gonna need even like 100 to reach our break-even point. But with accounting firms, because they bring their small business clients, we are able to do that quickly, and it's much easier.
Awesome. Thanks, Manny. And yeah, we're at about time there. I do want to leave a little bit of time for networking. If you've got any follow-on comments, Lister, Chris, feel free to connect with them here in the chat rooms or afterwards, and I could always facilitate that introduction. If anyone else has a question for any of the pitchers today, feel free to send them in the chat. Manny, there's a comment there for you in the chat if you want to check that out. And so with that, that wraps up the pitches. And big thank you to all of the companies that pitched today. 5 minutes goes by very, very quickly. These conversations can always go a lot longer than they actually do.